One time. What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're playing some more $1.5 $3 blinds. We have a starting stack of 300, so yeah, if you enjoy the video, please remember to subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Let's get into it. The first hand we pick up is ace jack offsuit in the big blind. We're starting off here 5-handed. Under the gun opens to $9, the small blind calls, and this is probably quite a good spot to 3-bet squeeze with a strong holding. But on this occasion, I decided on a low frequency call. On this occasion, not just because of the intention to balance, but because we're all quite short stacked, starting with $300, and if I 3-bet, it's quite likely both opponents call, and then we'll have to play a large pot with shallow stacks 3 ways being out of position against one opponent, which I know that was a mouthful of a sentence, but yeah, basically bad. The flop comes queen 6 queen rainbow, really dry, and most of the time the pre-flop aggressor should be way ahead. In reality, we've under-repped our hand greatly, so when the small blind checks, I check, and action's on the under the gun player. He makes quite a small bet of $9, the small blind folds, and we're definitely not going away here. We have way more 6s than him, and he could easily be betting with an ace high worse than ours, which he believes to be good, so I make the call. The turn comes the 4 of clubs, pretty much a brick. Once again, I do have more 4s in my range, but this doesn't really change much, so I check once again, and our opponent throws out a bet of $18. Once again quite small, same as the flop, but I've seen him do this before with absolute air. Our hand is quite a good bluff catcher, and what can he actually have? Either a queen, which probably should be using a more polarized bet sizing, or some pocket pair which could play this way for thin value. I make the call once again, and we're off to a river. It comes the 7 of hearts, and although it looks to connect the board quite a lot, the straights that complete aren't really in our range anymore. Maybe for the undergun player if he was completely bluffing the flop with minimal equity. However, I myself shouldn't really have any straights. I feel as though I've played this hand pretty badly. My whole standing is that my hand is so under-repped so that our opponent could believe he is betting with the best hand using an ace high holding. Well, once we get to the river, if he checks behind, given the way he's played, he probably has some sort of pocket pair. If he does have a hand like ace high or king high that's worse than mine, he's surely got to think that he isn't good here, considering I've called down 2 streets, and because he's an aggressive player, I'd expect a triple barrel bluff a lot of the time rather than checking back. If he bets, he's either bluffing or has a queen, so I guess I could bluff catch, but I just don't really like the spot that I'm put in. I do check, not really sure what my plan is, and he throws out a bet of $39. Just below half pot, and I'm not sure what he's trying to represent. Personally, I would have used some bigger sizings with a queen, unless it's a weak one, although opening under the gun, I don't think many weak queens would be in his range here. Betting with a pocket pair would definitely be an overplay unless it's aces or kings perhaps. This sizing however just seems very value orientated, but because I've come this far and the price is so good, I kind of have to call here, especially because I've seen this player attempt a triple barrel bluff with small sizes in the past where he had absolute air. I've got into a bit of leveling war with myself, considering I under-repped my hand pre-flop. Maybe that's why I feel obliged to make the call, so I do. And unfortunately our opponent has queen jack, which is a pretty strong queen, so we did make the read right. If he had played this way with some weak queens it would have been a bad play, but since he did have a strong queen he could have bluffed like this also, so I don't really mind the play that much. Next hand we pick up ace queen offsuit in the small blind. We're now 6-handed for the rest of the session and we've added another 150 after losing the last hand. Under the gun opens to $9, the button 3-bets to 36. Now in position I may call this off, but if I call it's likely the under the gun player will call too, then I'll be out of position 3 ways in a 3-bet pot, which is just a terrible spot to be in, so I called 4-bet to $75. This action looks really strong and gets past the under the gun player. It's now onto the button who makes a swift call, so we're off to a flop in a 4-bet pot. The flop comes a good one, ace king 5 rainbow, heavily suiting my range and just a really good board for me. I have top pair. I'd bet this board texture 100% of the time with any 2 cards given I 4-bet pre-flop. I don't need to go too big, any hand that's going to call me will call for a larger sizing and a smaller sizing, so this is why we go small here. Any medium pocket pair is probably just going to fold here, so I bet $45, around quarter pot. I could even go smaller here to 5th pot, and the button quickly folds, so either calling with a medium pocket pair or maybe some suited connectors like 9-10 suited, something like that, but we scoop this pot. We pick up another nice hand in the next one, pocket 9s in the cutoff. It folds around to me, and I decide to open things up to $10.5. Well, the button now cold 3-bets me to $21, a min raise, and when action folds back to me, I'd call against most other players, but this guy has $159 left in his stack. But most importantly, I know he'll call hands with a lot less equity, like A7 suited, maybe some suited connectors. That's just the type of player he is. Either way, we're either flipping, where I technically have better equity if he has 2 overcards, but just say it was a 50-50 flip in hypothetical terms. I trust that the percentage of hands that will call me, which I have crushed in equity, is larger than the percentage of hands that will have me crushed, as in 10s and above. Therefore, this is a clear shove to me. I shove for 159 total, and we get called pretty quickly. Our opponent flips over ace-10 of spades, so yeah, pretty good. Pretty much a flip in this case. Let's run good. The flop comes 9-10 king rainbow. We're safe, we flopped a set, he's basically drawing dead. Let me just play out the table reaction for you.
Oh, you're dead. Queen jack.
Oh,
Jack,
oh.
jack, jack, jack.
Oh! No.
Not so dead after all, it seems. The tables seem to love me getting runnered. It is what it is. Our opponent had about 4% equity. 4%, but you know, that's just the way it goes sometimes. We lose this pot. Directly in the next hand, we pick up Queen 8 suited in the hijack. I haven't even got my camera set up properly. You'll see maybe a bit of a spoiler with all my chips being in the middle. This one gets interesting. Under the gun limps. I limp. The button raises to $18, and now the big blind shoves for $85.5. This guy's extremely tilted at the moment. He's been shoving half of his hands for the past orbit, and genuinely there's a really good chance I'm ahead here. Regardless, however, this is a terrible decision. But I myself am also very tilted given the runner-runner situation we just encountered last hand, and I don't have much more than 85 myself, so when it folds to me, and yeah, I decide to isolate, shoving my $159 stack in the middle. Very tilted, terrible move. Action is now onto the button, who tanks. He tanks for quite a while, actually seriously considering his options. My line probably looks really weird, limping then shoving over the top, when everyone at the table knows that the big blind is extremely tilted, and so am I. Eventually, he lays down what he says are pocket 4s, and we're off to a run out with the big blind. He actually shows us 7 deuce suited, so yeah, we are definitely ahead here. The flop comes king 9-4 rainbow, so the guy with the set is hating life right now. The turn comes the queen of hearts, he's drawing dead, we've won the pot. The river comes an inconsequential 5 of diamonds, and yeah, we take this one down against deuce 7 suited. On to the penultimate hand of the video, we pick up the best hand in all of poker, deuce 7 offsuit in the cutoff. What's important about this hand is we play a bounty at our table so that if you win with 7 deuce post flop, you win $10 off everyone at the table. Under the gun opens up the action to $12, I flat, and so does the small blind and big blind. The flop comes 7-7 king 2 hearts, slightly above average one would say. The small blind and big blind check, and now the pre-flop aggressor leads out for $27 on a pretty good board for him. I could raise here some of the time, but would essentially be giving my hand strength away, so I just decide on flat calling. The small blind also makes the call and the big blind folds. The turn comes the 4 of hearts, a really bad card for me. With this pot being 3 ways at the moment, it's not too unlikely that one of my opponents now has a flush. The small blind checks, and now the under the gun player open folds. Obviously he was bluffing with the 3rd heart completing on the turn. He says there's no way he can be good now, which I guess is fair enough. I think this is a good spot to check behind for some pot control, and yeah, even if I lose out on some value, it disguises my hand strength. I manage the size of the pot in case I'm against a flush, and I can make a larger bet size on the river to make up for the sum of the lost value. The river comes the queen of spades, great card for us, a complete blank, which to be fair, most non-king, 4 or heart would be good on this board texture. The small blind checks for the 3rd time, and at this point I'm pretty confident I have the winner. My read is that my opponent will be betting a lot of flushes at this stage, as there are just so many hands that I can be checking down with showdown value. Like I said earlier, I don't want to go for too small a sizing, I want to go quite large, considering I lost out on some value on the turn. I end up betting $90, which is okay, but I would have liked a big pot size bet to get maximum value against a king pair, or even some other pair if he really isn't believing me. Well, now the tanking begins. 6 minutes and 42 seconds of it to be precise. He immediately reveals he has King Jack, which to be honest was a holding that I put at the top portion of his range. So for this reason, I actually think my bet sizing is a mistake, considering that if a hand as strong as King Jack is so strongly debating whether to call, that means most of his worst King X's and other pairs will definitely not be calling, meaning I'll only be called with the top maybe 5% of his range that I was initially targeting calls with. When this is the case in poker, your bet becomes extremely unprofitable, because if he's literally calling you with a handful of hands that you can beat, the hands that he will call you with that you don't beat are much more plentiful, making your bet in turn unprofitable. Maybe I could have decreased my bet sizing to get more of his range to call, or maybe I could have increased my bet sizing, polarizing myself even more, representing a really good hand such as a flush, or a really bad hand with no showdown value at all. I could do this for example by overbetting the pot by double, but this is all hypothetical and after the fact. After he reveals he has King Jack, it really seems like he's about to fold. It's a friendly game and I sort of panic a little bit and flip over my deuce, which let me tell you all is a terrible mistake, and I knew it as soon as I did it. First of all, it's known that I'm not the kind of player to play random hands like deuce 8 or those sorts of trash hands, so it sort of limits the hands I could have here. Then secondly, I'm not the type of player to call down with randomness, so I've got to have something here, and the only things that really make sense, me calling the flop with 2 people behind, that I could have played with pre-flop are deuce 7, which is the most likely option, pocket deuces maybe, and a slight chance that I have ace deuce suited. Now, if you really think about it, deuces and ace deuce suited have genuine showdown value, so why would I bet this river when I could just check and showdown for free? It just makes no sense with these 2 hands. Therefore, it's literally only deuce 7. At this table, what actually was being said was it was between deuce 7, which is the more likely option, or ace deuce suited, which maybe if I just got a god read, I 100% wasn't good on this river, then maybe I could bet this river, but still I probably just showed down even if I thought I was beat. It was a massive mistake by me, flipping over the deuce, but my opponent actually started tripping himself out, saying why would I show a deuce as it makes it so obvious I have the bounty hand. He then proceeded to say this could be reverse psychology and that I want him to think I have deuce 7, so he folds, and yeah, this is my explanation for the tank of 6 minutes and 42 seconds. Eventually, he throws in calling chips because quote unquote he has a big stack, and obviously we're good, we collect everyone's bounty, and yeah, I thought that was a pretty interesting one. We scoop the pot. On to the last hand of the night, we pick up 3-10 suited in the big blind, under the gun bets $15, the hijack, button, and small blind all make the call, and on the big blind there's just no reason to fold here, so we make the call too. The flop comes 10 ace 4 2 spades. I mean, I guess you could say it fits under the gun's range, but 5 ways ranges kinda go out the window somewhat, so when the small blind checks, nothing more for me to do than check, and now under the gun bets $30. The hijack calls, so does the small blind, and getting a really good price to hit a 3 or a 10 given the implied odds too, I make the call. What did I say we wanted? That's right, the 3 of diamonds rolls off on the turn and now we're in a great position. I don't know what was going through my head at this point, but I decided to lead for $120 after the small blind checked, which looking back just seems really weird, but I don't know, I guess I thought the under the gun would check behind, and I didn't want to go 3 ways to a river and let them catch up. Under the gun now shoves over the top of me for $204, the hijack and small blind fold, and with so little left to put in, I kind of have to call, with hopefully at least 4 outs if I'm behind, which I think is pretty likely given the action. We stick in calling chips, and to my surprise we're ahead. Under the gun has ace king, so really unfortunate for him, but I guess going 5 ways, that's always the risk. I do think he could have bet larger on the flop, so if I had to criticize his play, that's the only area where I could see him playing it differently. Time to fade a bad river. It comes, the 9 of diamonds, all good, we scoop down the last part of the session, in what actually turned out to be a pretty good one. Thanks for watching guys, today we were in for $450, out for $795, meaning there was a total net positive of $345. Yeah, I think we had a good session today, there were quite a few interesting hands, but yeah, if you enjoyed, please remember to subscribe, it really helps the channel out. Peace.